This is my second stream for the day. You can see it says Wonder Woman's philosophy. That's what we're going to be talking about in a bit. It's in a different sort of way, but it should be interesting. I just posted up on social media the meme that I'm going to be discussing right now. Shout out to all you guys. Again, you can just leave your comments in the chat section right over here. Your comments in the chat section. Some of you guys are asleep. Some of you guys are awake. It's all good. Let's get into it. All right. So I will be trying to keep abreast of the chat section because I know you guys chat up a storm. You guys can talk. When you're ready, you just talk a lot, which is really cool. And I'm cool with that because I like to talk a lot myself. So it's all good. So leave your comments in the chat section. I'm going to just get into what we're going to talk about. All right. So always got something interesting for you guys. That much you can be guaranteed. First thing, Geoff Johns. This is old news, but still, I'm going to talk about it. Geoff Johns posted this up on his Twitter feed. You also find it on his Facebook. It's actually the top of his Facebook feed. WW84, hinting, of course, very strongly that Wonder Woman 84, that's what we're talking about. Wonder Woman will be in the year 1984. And of course, there's a lot of speculation about what that means and what she'll be involved in. I believe it's going to be a world event with the tearing down the Berlin Wall, Ronald Reagan, Gorbachev. I think it has something to do with that. So should be really cool to see how she's involved in that, what approach they take to this movie, how consistent it is with what she has said since Justice League, Batman v Superman, what she said also in Wonder Woman, hundreds of years before, 100 and something years before. So it should be interesting. What I want to look at right now, however, is her philosophy, what kind of philosophy she has, where her emphasis lies. And this is very important, and it would explain probably why she seemed so resistant to certain things that Bruce Wayne continued to propose, and how she even, it gives us a kind of a view lens as how she views Bruce Wayne, whether it is justifiable or not. It kind of gives us the lens in which she views him, and it might give us some insight also into what we will see in Wonder Woman 84, as a WW84 is what it's looking like right now. That sequel, it might give us hints as to how she will approach it because of her view of the world. You know, Superman has a certain specific view of the world. Batman has a specific view of the world, and that's why Batman and Superman clash. And Wonder Woman is no different to them. She also has a specific view of the world. And so we're going to get into that because I think it's just very interesting diving deeper into these characters from what we've seen in the movies. And you can see how very consistent these characters are. I want to just very quickly, briefly give you a synopsis of Batman's philosophy of the world, Superman's philosophy of the world, which we saw pretty much on display in Batman v Superman. And so it's pretty clear Batman's philosophy of the world is if there is a potential threat out there, prevention is better than cure. So Batman is a guy who's more tends to want to prevent things from happening and skyballing out of control. He's a guy who tends to look at the negative sides, the potential hazards of a thing, the potential shortcomings of a thing, and therefore he looks to eliminate those things before a hazard or some tremendous problem happens. So that's more like what Batman does. So he would quell the Penguin's plans, or he would mess up the Joker's plans to, you know, take down Gotham. You know, if there's a threat in Gotham and somebody died or people are being robbed, you know, Batman is the guy on the job, and he's looking for clues and hints to take people down. Batman doesn't look to, yes, he has his way of saving people, but it's not saving people particularly Batman is known for. Batman is much more known, his cipher, his ID is known for stopping opposition, stopping the criminal, stopping the crook, stopping something from happening. So Batman's philosophy is built upon prevention where possible. And if something's already happened, he's going to use his investigative skills to try and nab these people so they don't escape, so that more people's lives are not in jeopardy. Remember, Batman's history also gives us an idea why he's so on this preventative sort of approach to things. It's because his parents died. And so he wants to constantly in his mind, psychologically prevent that action, prevent that incident that happened to him from happening to anyone else. And what he chose to do was turn the tables on the criminals. Whereas, you know, his heart was filled with horror and fear of the criminals and what they did to him because he lost his parents. He wants to turn that back on the criminals and have them have horror and fear him. And he be the emblem of fear towards the criminals so that they would never continue their acts of crime. The whole idea Batman is doing is to prevent things from happening. So that's his philosophy. And that's where he shines as a sort of anti-hero. Some people think of him as a hero. Some people think of him more as a ruthless vigilante that is taking justice into his own hands. So there are different views of Batman out there. And lots of people enjoy his mystique. But when you think about it, Batman has bent the law. He works with criminals. He does all kinds of crazy things. But he's always looking effectively to prevent something from happening. Now, Superman's ideology is a little bit different. Superman is a savior. He believes, now there's a difference between a savior and a protector, okay? Superman comes in to save the day. He's more about hope. Superman is built, you know, Batman is built on justice and finding, you know, the criminals or prosecutors, whatever, and bringing them to justice. And he's about preventing things from happening. Superman, on the other hand, thinks on the other end, he's trying to inspire people to do things, inspire people to be empowered, inspire people to think lofty ideals. So Superman's philosophy, instead of trying to, Superman looks to save people. He will save a cat out of the tree. He will save a rocket from exploding. He will save people from an exploding building. He will save. So he's more of a savior. Now, Wonder Woman, on the other hand, her philosophy is built on the philosophy of the Amazons. And the Amazons have a particular philosophy. So we're going to go into Wonder Woman and then see how her past history, her origin story, her history influences that. We know for Batman, it's because he lost his parents. He's more of a preventative kind of guy, and he's more of a detective, and he tries to hunt down criminals, put the fear in their hearts and horror, and stop them. Okay. Superman is more about inspiration, and again, it comes from his background. Even though when he got in contact with the House of El, his father, and spoke to him about what hope is and giving people hope. Jonathan Kent always putting in these values. He grew up on a farm, a small America, a small value. So he learned how to be good and to inspire people and to try to save people. Superman's all about saving people. He takes to save a lot. Saved the kids with the bus that was sinking. He saved the people on the oil rig. He saved the soldier guy that was about to get annihilated by General Zod's soldiers. He's more of a savior type, and he's inspired when his father says to him, "You can save her, Kal. You can save them all." All right. So Kal's more of the savior kind of complex kind of guy, the messianic kind of dude. He really is on that messianic level. Now Wonder Woman's a little bit different. She's almost a combination of Batman and Superman because of her philosophy. So let's just go into it right here. So this here is telling us the root causes for Diana's constant opposition to Bruce Wayne. Now we know that Bruce Wayne, he clashed with Superman. Whereas Superman was very inspirational to people, Batman could only see the negative impact Superman could have on people and the potential for Superman to be, devastating to the world, his potential as a threat. So whereas Superman was looking at Batman as someone who was abusing justice and not giving people the chance to really be free, and he came in, he swooped in to try and save the day there. Batman, on the other hand, he's opposed to Superman's the existence of Superman because he sees the potential for Superman to be a terrible risk to the whole entire world, and he needs Superman to be accountable. So you can see how they clashed in their ideologies there. Now it's very interesting that Diana actually, if you've been paying attention, has clashed in her ideology with Batman. And it's really because if you do understand Diana's ideology, now it starts to make sense why she behaved as she did behave. from Batman v Superman, how she interfaced with not only Bruce Wayne but Batman, and how she continues to interface with him through Justice League, and it's very consistent. All right, so we're going to go into that, but before I do, I usually kind of take a little pause sometimes just to get you guys into it. Oh, that's beautiful. That's crystal clear there. Okay. Before I do get into this, I want to just say first and foremost that I'm going to check you guys out in the chat section, see if anybody's out there in the chat section. What are people doing in the chat section? Make sure everybody's on point here. Nobody's up in the chat section. That's amazing. Okay, so this must be a quiet spell here. Okay, well, cool. Let's get into it anyway. And remember, you can leave your comments in the chat section, so feel free to leave your comments in the chat section. Of course, this is a spontaneous stream, so I understand why, and it's in an awkward hour, so I understand why people may not be there to discuss this with me, but I still think that this is something worth discussing, so I'm going to discuss it. So the first thing you have to understand is Diana grew up as an Amazon. She grew up as an Amazon. And she heard the story that her mother told her, and then her aunt also told her parts of that story. And Diana held that to heart. Now, Diana, we eventually learn, is not just an Amazon. She's a mix. She's an Amazonian goddess, okay? She's part Amazon, part God, because of Zeus tying the knot with, well, he didn't tie the knot. He just took it and for reasons. He got intimate, or should I say, he had consensual intercourse with Hippolyta, and so brought forth Diana. Diana is Hippolyta's child. Now, anyway, the point is that the Amazons believe it's their sacred duty to protect the world. Okay? And that is something that Diana believed to her core, such that it moved her when Steve Trevor intervened into the life of the Amazons as people died and all that stuff. It moved her to go with Steve Trevor into man's world. She lived on Themyscira. She was insulated from man's world. She went into man's world to stop Ares, who was considered one that would jeopardize not only man's world, but the world of the Amazons. Okay? And that would be well and good, and she did it mainly because she learned that people's lives were dying, and she felt it was an obligation on her part and the Amazons to protect them, okay? Because she grew up being told this and was taught this by her mother. So she then goes in, she's naive to the ways of mankind and stuff like that, and when she goes in anyway, she appreciates and she values human life even more after she fails to protect the life of Steve Trevor, who she loved, and the villagers of Veld, where she had saved that village from not only a siege that happened and occupational rulership from the Nazis who had taken over that village, but she was also able to free them and allow them to get, outlet to get food and stuff like that they needed, because they were held under siege, and she was able to push back the siege along with the help of her team, which she led. She led this team through no man's land and all the soldiers behind her. She was this brave leader. She led them all in, and she was able to save this village, okay? But as a result of her efforts, they came to naught when she failed to stop Ludenberg from shooting his chemical warfare into that particular town. He chose that particular town for maybe because he found out that it somehow was able to resist them or whatever. I don't know. But he shot it into that particular town and killed everyone. And she felt like it was in her grasp to stop him. And then Steve Trevor kind of stopped her from stopping him. And she then tried her best to save the people of the town. But by then it was too late. And she was devastated by that she was not able to protect them. No, it's not so much save them that she fails in, but fails in her sacred duty to protect the world. She saved the village. She saved the village, right? She saved it from their oppressors. But then when it was attacked this time, she was unable to protect it. This is very important. The second one was when the object of her affections, the one she loved, Steve Trevor, she failed to hear what he said to her before he was leaving, even though she was trying to help him, but she was preoccupied with Ares, which was a much bigger task at hand. And when he left her, she didn't understand what he was saying. She couldn't hear everything because of the explosion. Her ears wasn't hearing. And when he left her, she failed to protect him again. This was her job. Her job, she felt that the thing that she actually came there to do, she didn't do. And she failed twice, okay? She failed the first time when Steve Trevor was saying, help me, help these people. And she said, no. And he went off with his team, okay? The second time, she gets blown all the way down. Steve Trevor runs to her. He's talking to her. She can't hear a thing he's saying. Then she's saying, let me help you. And he's like, no, this is my own, but I love you. And he gets out of there. And she stands up there for a minute. And then she turns around, runs away, not understanding the significance of what he's saying to her until way after. And when she sees his plane blow up in the sky, she goes berserk, okay? And truly, these are two devastating cuts for her, because she had a naive view of the world, and she felt she could make a difference, and she was leading out from the front, and she's inspiring a lot of people, and she was doing the impossible, right? And she saves this town, but she's not able to protect it, okay? Steve Trevor is the one who she comes close with, and she even protects him at a certain point in time, and he protects her, and it's working out well, but then she fails to protect him. The thing she was born to do, she fails to do it. So what happens at the end of this is Diana now is hypersensitive to people's lives and that their lives are intact. She's hypersensitive to that. After that tremendous event that happened in World War I, a horrific event for her, devastating, Diana looks in horror at the mass death of the villagers she recently saved by poison gas launched by General Ludendorff. She screams out in anguish when she witnesses Steve's plane explode, okay, because Steve commits suicide just to save these people. Commits suicide, by the way, to save these people. Diana forever is changed by those incidents, okay? She's forever changed. Her priority is people's lives first, everything else second. Okay, Diana, like, she gets hypersensitive to anything that has to do with people's lives. And from that point onwards, and we'll see it when she speaks about it, from that point onwards, she is almost to the point of disgusted when someone does not pay attention to people's lives. Okay, people's lives are like her #1 priority before everything else. Okay. And so, and she's about protecting. Now, there's a difference between saving somebody and protecting somebody. If you save someone, for instance, someone's, okay, I mean, the words are kind of synonymous, but not really. Take, for instance, when the bus went into the river, it's not so much that Clark Kent was protecting those people. No, he saved them, because what was he protecting them from? Drowning? You can't protect someone from drowning. You just save them from drowning. You can't protect them. So it wasn't something that was a threat that needed, therefore the person needed to protect. So in this case, Diana is a protector because there was a literal threat, a human threat, with the village of Veld, which was occupied by Nazis. And then in the other time, she tried to save these people. It was an opposition, an antagonist, an adversary that fired poison gas into the town, and she was trying to protect them from that. It was just too late. Okay, so there's a difference between protection and saving someone. All right, so Diana first encounters Bruce Wayne in action as Batman. She saves him. She protects him from doomsday. She operates in, again, human life is like life period, not just human life, but life period is like priority 1 for Diana. Diana is all about the innocent and protecting the oppressed and helpless. And she says that in Wonder Woman. And she really goes 100% like that. Once, you know, the situations like that. And you think about the terrorist situation and how she reacted, and how she pretty much annihilated it. She killed the terrorists just to protect the lives of the people. She gets hypersensitive to protecting, especially innocent lives. She's hypersensitive to that. Okay. So in BVS, when she says to Bruce Wayne, who's Batman at the time, she says, "Why did you bring it back to the city?" When Bruce Wayne leads Doomsday into the harbor area because he wants to get back to Kryptonite Spirit to kill Doomsday. He doesn't know how he's going to do that, but he's going to try and get that. Diana is literally disgusted with Batman. And she basically says, why did you bring him back to the city? And if you look at her face, she was literally disgusted with him. You could see her face was like, what are you doing? And it's because, again, when Batman decides to bring Doomsday back to a city, in this case, it's Gotham Harbor, which is near to Gotham City, by the way. It's not that far away. You know, she immediately senses that the lives of people are at risk by this very devastating monster, which is very dangerous. And so she is literally at the edge of herself, about to kill him. Literally, she's pissed off with him. And she's saying, you know, why did you bring it back to the city? Okay. Now, he does answer her, and he says, you know, the port is abandoned, and there's a weapon in here that can kill it, right? He does answer her. And I guess her opinion slightly changes. But she's still thinking to herself, he was on an island, all alone, far away from any city, and you still brought him near to Gotham, because we could see Ace Chemicals in the background. We could see all the buildings in the background. Yes, the wharf is on the outside outskirts of the city and it's unoccupied, but still, it's kind of ridiculous because, you know, Manhattan, you know, the island that they were going to be on was going to be much further away, and you could have just done what you had to do. So she's a little, I tell you, she was perturbed. You could see her face was still serious. She didn't say another word to Bruce. You ever notice that? She didn't say anything to him after that. She didn't want to talk to him. And then, of course, she answered Kal-El when Kal-El was talking about, and she said something like, it looks like it absorbs energy. She said something like that. It feeds off of energy. And then Kal-El says, well, it comes from my world. And she said, I've killed things already from other worlds before. And he looks at Bruce and he says, she with you? He said, I thought she was you, right? Which to me is always funny. It's hilarious. And anyway, the point is that she was disgusted with Bruce Wayne and disgusted with the fact that he's so reckless in thinking that sort of way. Like Bruce, it's really strange. Bruce is not very human in the way how he thinks. He thinks very logically, deductively. He tries to calculate every single variable, but he doesn't really particularly care about individual lives. He's very logical. He's very robotic. He's very strategic. And he caters for all factors. But for Diana, she's hypersensitive to the fact that human lives could be lost. This is her thing. On my watch, nobody must die. She's like pretty particular about that. And on her watch in BVS, what happened? Kal-El died. Kal-El died on her watch in BVS. And you saw her look up into the sky after she could not answer. She couldn't answer Lois Lane. She just looked up in the sky. You know, triple whammy. So she lost the people. Now, I'm not talking about, and always when she's carrying out a function as a leader, and you could see she was leading from the front. She was the one leading the charge against Doomsday. She was the first to really put down the hammer on him. Superman was getting his butt kicked. Yes, he pushed Doomsday up into the sky. He got blown up. Then he pushed Doomsday into some petrol or some kind of tank things and blew up everything. But at the end of the day, he's getting his butt kicked. She's the one standing up to him. And she did the majority of the fighting, in fact. She's the leader again, and what happens to Kal-El? He dies. He dies, folks. He dies. On her watch. That must suck. So, of course, she's hypersensitive to leading out, and she's hypersensitive to lives. And you can see this is her philosophy. Her philosophy is all about protecting life. Preserving life. That's what Diana is. And now you can understand with her introduction to Batman and Batman bringing Doomsday there, and she's pissed. Strategically, she thinks it's a bad move. I think a lot of people also who are watching BVS, some of them also said, why did they go and bring them back to Gotham Harbor? I remember some people saying that, even though Batman said the port is abandoned, there's a weapon here that can kill it. And that made sense. But nonetheless, a lot of people said that. And I think it's because when they saw Diana's face and she was just disgusted with Bruce Wayne, they read into that, you know, the actor Gal Gadot doing that. And I thought that was really principled because, again, Diana is constantly thinking about people's lives and that it could be in jeopardy. And we see this again after Superman's dead. They're in his funeral. Bruce Wayne makes in a way, it's rather stupid or insensitive. I think the word is insensitive, because I don't think he ever tried to put himself in Diana's shoes. He's not trying to put himself in Diana's shoes. He doesn't know her history. He really doesn't know her history. And you can see he's an insensitive prick and jerk in Justice League when he throws Steve Trevor's name straight at her face. You can tell he's a prick. He's not very intuitive as to how people feel in their hearts. You can tell that. But nonetheless, Diana, in the funeral, Bruce Wayne is talking about, I failed him in life. I won't fail him in death. Help me find the others like you. And Diana gives him a very, if you really read into that, it's very thoughtful what she says. And of course, she's probably by now 900 years old. So she would have a lot of thought behind what she says, not to mention she's been 100 years with mankind. And so she says, perhaps they don't want to be found. And that, believe it or not, is a rather deep way of thinking when you think of people's lives in the forefront. See, there's a place and time to come out of the dark. Remember, Jonathan Kent did not want young Clark to come out into the light and be revealed to the world, mainly because the world was not ready for that. And in fact, just imagine how much people would have freaked out if he came out earlier. And they freaked out when he did come out. When he finally came out, the controversy and the problems, it put Clark at risk, and it eventually killed him, because what happened was Lex Luthor was able to find out who he was, blah, 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 and devise a plan to kill him, okay? Diana, being like Clark, having seen what happened to Clark, knowing the entire story because the papers put up that Lex Luthor killed him, Diana says perhaps they don't want to be found. And it really makes sense that she would say that, because she's in the shadows herself. Because Diana's, once again, doesn't think people like her would want to have their lives exposed. In fact, it would be riskier than working in the dark. And Bruce, of all people, should know this, because as Batman, he dwells in the dark. So it was a highly, I would say, insensitive and rather unthought out statement that he makes, because he's compelled to want to justify himself and make amends and atone for what his guilt is, that he killed Superman. And so it's very interesting that Diana, when she answers, when you really analyze what Diana's saying, there's a lot of wisdom behind what she's saying. And she's coming from a perspective, of course, always, of people's lives first. Their number one priority is people's lives. And these are people. And she's realizing that would be dumb if they would want you to find them, Bruce. Because Bruce has a record for not doing too well with superheroes. Okay? The Robin died under his watch. The Superman died under his watch, as Aquaman so correctly stated. So he doesn't really have a very good record of having superheroes survive under him, if you really think about it. So if you really are thinking about what Diana said in BVS, if you really pay attention, you really put some thought into it, you'd realize that she actually makes more sense than he does. He's acting out of more desperation and a gut feeling, which in the end, he proves to be correct, okay? But nonetheless, it's risky all the way to the end, okay? It's risky all the way to the end. And because he's so insensitive and he's not human, he doesn't have that caring attribute. He has, deep down, he cares, but I mean, he's not that kind of caring human kind of person that interfaces with people and loves and cares and transforms them, okay? He's not really that kind of dude. Batman's not that kind of guy. Bruce Wayne's not that kind of guy. Let's be real. But you have to understand, Bruce's philosophy is prevent crisis, prevent this from happening again. So that's why he's saying, help me find the others like you. So his philosophy of prevention now clashes up against the philosophy of protection, with human life as the number one priority. And whereas Batman's his history is based on the death of his parents and him not wanting that to happen again. Diana's philosophy is based on the death of Steve Trevor and people she failed to protect. For her, it's about protection. And right now, every statement she says comes from that place of protection and preservation of human life. She's always coming from that perspective. All right, let me go back to the chat section just to see what you guys are saying up in here before I go back to what I'm saying here. And okay, I'm just going to refresh it a little bit. I know you guys can see the screen, but I just want to see what you guys are seeing, just to see if anybody's in. So remember, you can join the chat section. Please feel free to join the chat section. I want some input. I want some dialogue. Let's talk about this. Okay. Now, so what's interesting about these characters in the DCU, they're nicely defined based on their philosophies, based on their mythology, based on their ideologies. And this is the thing I like about the DCU. And again, if you guys are in the chat section, at least say hello. If you're watching this video, at least say hello. Why don't you do that? I know you're listening and you're learning a lot or whatever, but say hello. It's pretty polite, I think. Anyway, let's move on. So you can see that Diana, she's coming from that place consistently of people's lives first. All right, Bruce, people's lives first. And secondly, she's always coming from the place of, if you don't protect them, I'll protect them. So that's why people get the impression in Justice League that Bruce was being reckless with the lives that he had around him. It's because Diana continuously challenges him and checks him on it. But he's not reckless. He's catering to all these different things, but he's not really a loving, shows love and care, and he's not hyper protective of people and their lives at this point in time. Because Diana has had a history up to this point of losing the people that give their lives to be able to go after a cause. And every time she's leading a charge, important people under her have died. And it grates against her last being, because her whole purpose, she's been always, her whole entire life, she learned that she was to protect the world. So every time she fails to do that, it's huge on her. And especially when she fails to do it with the people that actually count. Okay. Now, you can contrast Diana with Antiope, who has been very successful at protecting the people who she was in charge of. She was not able to protect her life, but she laid down her life and protected Diana. So Antiope, remember, Diana had to live up to, and this is something people forget, the emblem that's on her forehead, the headpiece that she has, that was Antiope's. And Diana has to live up to what Antiope represents, which is she cares about the people under her charge and she protects the people under her charge. Now, don't get it twisted. People in, the Amazons, there were Amazons that died on the field fighting for the cause that Antiope was fighting for. Don't get it twisted. But my point being, Antiope was a very good protector. She was going to protect somebody. She succeeded at protecting them. Okay. Diana had to live in the shadow of that. And you heard Hippolyta give Diana the charge. I don't know if you guys remember this in Wonder Woman, where she says, live worthy of it. This was Antiope's, the greatest warrior that ever lived among us, the greatest warrior of us, our kind. Live as if you deserve it. Okay. Her mother charged her with that. So she probably felt after reflection that she failed to do that. Okay, in spite of the fact that she actually helped mankind sort of ease off the war end, she destroyed Ares, she probably on reflection started to feel she failed that, because the people that most counted to her, she did not protect them. Okay, and so that may have haunted her for a very long time. Another very important thing to understand about Diana is that if you're really thinking about this character and you're really putting some thought into this character, is that Antiope protected the lives that counted to her. She found a way to protect those lives. Diana did not succeed at doing that. She was unable to protect Steve Trevor, whereas Antiope was successful in protecting her. Okay. And Tybee was so successful, she was able to charge Diana to leave the island and go searching after Ares. She said, "You're ready. Go out there." Remember, she said that? That was the last few words she said. And she is also able to bring out of Diana the powers and the abilities that she had. And Antiope was happy. She saw the day when she saw that. So, you know, it was all these factors that Antiope was able to do that Diana has inherently in her. She's able to transform people, encourage them, make people live up to their potential. We saw it with Cyborg and with Aquaman and so on. And she, you know, she's able to bring that out of people, and she's very transformative, just like Antiope was to her. Not so much Hippolyta, but Antiope was to her. But yet she feels like she's failed to live up to that legacy that Antiope was. So there's all these little things going on in Diana's mind that you have to understand when she's speaking to Bruce Wayne. And Bruce Wayne, in her mind, he's reckless. Okay, he does not care about human life. That's her first impression of him, and it kind of stays as they're having a conversation. And she's very wary of him. Okay, in that respect. So, as Jeff Johns once said, he said Diana kind of keeps Bruce on track when he's starting to go off the deep end. You know, she keeps him on track. Okay, she's kind of, it's the irony of irony. She's not human, but she kind of grounds him into humanity. And it's ironic that Bruce loves Superman. He really does. And Superman's not a human, but Superman also grounds him into reality. And he was about to kill Superman, if you do remember. Again, Diana was the person that kind of ground Bruce, that kind of also had an influence on him with respect to metahumans, that kind of prevented Bruce from killing Clark. Okay. And as again, like I said, Batman is loosely connected to humanity. He's only connected to humanity in terms of pain and his objective to prevent the disaster of his parents. He's kind of connected to humanity through Alfred. But Bruce is now in Justice League. It's really interesting because I like to psychoanalyze these guys. Bruce is actually, he's still not really connected to reality. To humanity that much. He's connected to humanity through the Flash right now because he has to mentor him a bit, and he's a mentor to the Flash. But if you think about it, the other two people who ground him to reality, which is Diana and Clark, they're not humans. They're not humans. It's really interesting. So anyway, so let's keep it moving. So you can see why Diana, she is adverse literally to Bruce's strategy. And even though Bruce he also makes sense because he's trying to prevent something from happening. She can see the other side, and Bruce is just not sensitive to that. All right. But she's hypersensitive to that. So when we see her again in Justice League, and these are not the only occasions where she spoke like this. She spoke like this a number of occasions too, in both Batman v Superman and also even in Wonder Woman. She had certain things that she said at the end of Wonder Woman, if you were paying attention, that allude to this, that she values human life and she's about protecting it. And of course, she's very consistent in this, even in Justice League. When you get the intro to her, she's again trying to protect human life, which is why she annihilates. I mean, she annihilates the Alpha Tower Sky. Okay, she doesn't annihilate all the other people. I mean, she slams some people into walls and stuff, the terrorists and guys, but she moves really fast. But at the end of the day, the one terrorist that she kills, and we're pretty sure, 100% sure he's dead, is the Alpha terrorist, who she takes out. Okay, he does not survive. Okay, he's dead. There's no two ways about that. Okay. All right, just like how she killed Ares, she killed him. He's not alive. He's dead. Okay, she killed him. Okay, and again, you have to understand, she's not just a messiah figure. Superman is adverse. It really pains him to kill people because he really is about saving people. Superman is not about killing people. He's about saving people. Diana will kill you to preserve innocent lives. She doesn't have a problem killing you. Okay, that's why she's a protector. So she's kind of in between Batman and Superman in that respect, because Batman's about preventing, and therefore that's, in a way, he's like a protector. She will prevent something bad from happening. Diana as well, like prevent Ares from having mankind kill each other out. So she's kind of in between. She's inspirational. She does save people by protecting them. So she's kind of in between Batman and Superman in that regard. But she's really a protector at heart, and she's a hypersensitive protector, okay, because of the bad things that happened to her when she was leading. So let's go into and see how true this is. So when Diana next talks with Bruce Wayne, and she highlights the situation with Steppenwolf and what's really going on, so that Bruce can make some sense of what he's doing, his detective work, Diana again says certain things that really stand out. She says, we're asking people we don't know to risk their lives. Again, she's kind of clashing with Bruce here. And then Bruce says, well, that's how this works, right? And that does not satisfy her. You can see her face is quite serious. And that's again because she continues to value people's lives as the #1 priority. Because of her failure to protect those lives more than a century ago, and then very recently in Batman v Superman, she really clashes with Bruce on these kinds of issues because ideologically she's at loggerheads with him. He's making her do things she does not want to do because she feels like she will jeopardize lives by doing these things. But she's doing it, but she doesn't like doing it. Okay. And she comes back to the head with Bruce. She really, like you can see, she's really pissed with him and she wants to kill him almost. Look at her face. When Bruce Wayne continues to talk about bringing back Superman, and he just will not think about the lives of people. And what if this thing goes south? She sounds like Batman. Batman now, she's thinking of the negative possibility that can happen with this. And she's literally, she reminds me of what she looked like in BVS. She's disgusted with him. She's like, you're such an insensitive prick. And she's trying with her last nerve to wheel it in because she feels he's being very reckless at this time with people's lives. Okay. She feels exactly the same way she felt about when he brought Doomsday into the city, and she looked at him with disgust. She literally, you could see, it's almost like she's ready to kill him. She's like, look, I'm here to protect these people, and you keep on trying to kill them. You know, it's literally at loggerheads with him. And she literally, I think why she even shoves him after he mentions Steve Trevor, which is almost like that's the last straw, because Steve Trevor is the reason why she's hypersensitive to the lives of people, and he just presses the button, you know, like a prick. And she totally sees him as an enemy, and she pushes him off. You know, she could have killed him. She could have killed him, but I think she values his life more than he valued his life there. But literally, he pressed the button. It's an ideological button, which is this: I care about people's lives. I care about innocent lives, and you keep on trampling on that. Since I first met you as Batman and I defended your stupid life, you've been trying to kill people. And she even says, you're not guilty for killing Superman. Remember the guilt that you have for Superman? She knows he tried to kill him. Okay, she knows that. And she also knows that he feels bad about it. And he told her that in BVS. I failed him in life. I won't fail him in death, right? And he behaves like a typical guy. Bruce behaves like a typical man in the sense that men are so logical that they're not very nurturing. If you think about a mother cares about her children and she really feels for her children and stuff. And fathers just don't, right? And Bruce is very insensitive to the fact that Diana she really does not want anyone to die. Okay, she doesn't want that to happen under her watch. It's happened 3 times before, as far as we know, and he was around, and he caused it once. Okay, the first time was because he brought him back into Gotham. Okay, you remember that? Brought Doomsday into Gotham. Okay, Superman came from where he came from. She came from where she came from. She saved his life because he didn't care about his life. You know what I'm saying? He didn't think through it, and his life was at risk. She protected him, and he got them into Gotham. Okay, so she's really pissed, and she's actually speaking to him as a 900-year-old existing sentient being who is not human. Okay, You have to understand that. And she's like at her last nerve with this little prick, okay, who's just appeared on the scene just a couple of years ago. Whereas Bruce thinks of himself as a senior member of the team, she sees him as a junior, okay? And she's trying to pull in her nerves here, her last nerve, as she's speaking to him here. And I just love it because somehow, some way, the script must have been that good. And then Whedon seemed to have captured that. And you can literally pit this photo here. Hold on a second. This photo here with this photo, and you can see the disgust both times. And it's very interesting that these two are also parallels. She's not looking at him while she's talking to him. So I don't know how we managed to pull that subtlety off. Maybe he didn't plan it. Maybe he understood. I mean, these directors are incredibly smart people. So I wouldn't be surprised, you know, Zach explained it to him and he was able to capture that. But it is just on the head, folks. It can't get more. I mean, it's very explicit that she just came to, they locked heads right here. Bruce is thinking, this is what needs to be done so I can stop this guy. Because it's all about stopping a guy. And Diana's like, I need to protect these people. You cannot just do this. I need to protect these people. So the clash happens right there. So what's interesting about Justice League, first, it's really, if you really think about it, it's really BVW. But this time it's not Dawn of Justice. After that is Justice. So it's really BVW, or Batman versus Wonder Woman, or Batman v Wonder Woman. Well, not really. It's Wonder Woman living Batman. Well, yeah, kind of. Because in the end, you see him with her, and she's saying, and they're working together, and she's like, "I'm room for more." So I guess, yeah, I could see Batman v Wonder Woman, sort of. Or should I say WV Batman BVW? I think it's WVB. I don't know. I have to think it out. But at the end of the day, she basically is challenging him to think about other people, to care for other people. And he's one mind focused. He's tunnel vision. He's one mind focused, just like he was in BVS. And he's tunnel vision too much that he's not seeing what she's seeing. Okay? And I find this very interesting, from her perspective, what it looks like. And so let's go to finally, after he gets his butt kicked by Superman and she's not able to protect him, but this time he survives. For the first time, Diana is unable to protect someone, but they manage to survive. And the reason they managed to survive is because Batman, his contingency plan, saved him by the scruff of his neck. Otherwise, he's dead right now. Okay? There's a Steve Trevor moment right there. And after he survives, she now has compassion for him because she can breathe a sigh of relief. You remember, this was a joint venture in which she was part leader. And she did not want to lead. She was very angry, okay? She said, I'm doing this for him, okay? And she did not want to lead out. And it so happened she had to protect him. And she failed to protect him. And Superman almost killed him, okay? But by the scruff of his teeth, he was able to, literally by the scruff of his neck. Superman had him by the scruff of his head, okay? By the scruff of his neck, he managed to pull it out with his wits, okay? And she valued his honor, and she valued that he led out. Even though everything was going crazy, she valued that. So she had pity on him, and she came to him. And she said, you know, I know I should have led. I know what you were trying to do. But you have to understand, Bruce, you know, and she spells out what really her philosophy. And also she spells out that why she's afraid to lead. Okay. And she speaks about all the deaths that happened. And one of the most recent was Superman's death. Okay. And so that's the kind of catharsis where he says, well, you know what, after this, you know, if you could just come out the shadows for this one and lead out a bit, you know, and lead the team, you know, you won't have to do this ever again, you know. And it's for her, it's catharsis because she was hypersensitive to protecting people. Okay. She felt it was her duty to protect people. And even Superman, she was trying to protect Superman. She was trying to protect Batman at that point in time. She was like, help me subdue him. Help me. She wasn't trying to kill him. Okay. She was trying to restrain him so he could catch himself. And she tried to stop him from killing Bruce Wayne. She failed at that. So she failed twice. But somehow, some way, Superman didn't kill Bruce Wayne. And he didn't kill the rest of the team. And they managed to breathe. So she had to breathe a sigh of relief, because she could see this thing coming from afar. And she read it correctly. Okay. And she was right when she was speaking to Bruce Wayne about how reckless that was. So anyway, and Bruce thought he had a contingency plan, and it worked out. It almost didn't, but it worked out. And so because of that, seeing the bruises and the injuries, she came to him. He's just a human being. Remember, she's an Amazon. And she appreciates him because he actually succeeded at doing something that she was not able to do. And she appreciated him taking on this huge responsibility, which he tried to sponge off on her. He tried to get her to be responsible for it, the thing. Because it was like, if you think about it, Bruce Wayne was saying, man, this is a lot for me. But you're this big, superpowered, inspirational person, and you don't want to take up this responsibility. I shouldn't be doing this. You should be doing this, right? This is basically what he was saying in the conversation. And she now, she feels a certain genuine appreciation for him and empathy for him, because she knows how hard it is to lead. And he sort of fails miserably in a way. And he's all banged up and everything. And so she comes to help him because she knows what it is to fail. She knows what it is for things to go south. She knows what it is to lead and things, and people die. Nobody died in this case, not even the police officers, but it potentially could have been massively a problem. Okay. This could have gone south in so many different ways. Okay. So she knows what it is he just got through. And so you can see that she's now speaking to him and confessing, no. When he says, it wasn't my business to talk about Steve Trevor, she was like, no, you don't understand. It was my responsibility to defend the world. I was supposed to be leading this thing out. I abdicated my responsibility. And the reason is because, man, every time I step to the plate and lead, people die. Okay. People die. And she appreciated that he actually did it. And she was, it was a sort of catharsis for her because she was hypersensitive to lives of people to the extent that it crippled her from really conducting her role of being a protector. So what she did, and even though she stepped up to the plate, she explained, I step up to the plate all the time, but you have to understand this responsibility of people's lives it's a sacred thing to me. It's my sacred duty, and I constantly fail at it. She feels she fails at being that protector that Antiope was. So anyway, that catharsis leads to her still opposing Bruce Wayne's action, because Bruce Wayne, once again, is very insensitive and he has complete disregard for life. He follows that template over and over again. So Bruce Wayne says, okay, so you guys go take on Steppenwolf. I'll try and take out the parademons in the tower, okay? Don't look for me. Don't wait for me. Just do the job, right? That's what he says. And he goes off on a suicide mission to kamikaze himself. All right? When he's like, you remember when he was saying, they're coming. They're all coming. And then Alfred says, I don't think we thought this through all the way, okay? It's funny because Alfred is making that discovery knowing he's beginning to realize, oh, Bruce Wayne's trying to kill himself. So instead of saying, Bruce, what are you doing? He won't say that. He says, I don't think we thought this all the way through. So to me, that's funny because instead of, he's trying to be sort of euphemistic, and it's just funny. It's funny as hell. And but anyway, and I don't know if Whedon gave that line, but I find it a very interesting line. Okay. And anyway, so Diana now is seeing that, and she's gauged the situation. Cyborg says he's clearing the field, and then she says he won't last 3 minutes. Aquaman says, so let's use them, right? Aquaman doesn't give a France about, again, these guys don't care about the other people's lives. This is a huge thing for Diana. And she's been consistent throughout in her philosophy. Protect life. Protect. So she again goes in conflict with Bruce Wayne. Okay. She conflicts with him once more. And instead of following the order to take out, you know, to go find Steppenwolf and take him out and let Batman die doing the misdirection, she has to protect him. She's protecting everybody on her watch. That's her thing. That's what she does. And so she steps up to the plate and leads. That's the thing that forces her to lead, and she embraces it immediately, and she acts. Okay? Because once again, Bruce is showing this reckless regard for life that she consistently does not like. Okay? And that prompts her to action. That's what made her act there. And she leads out, and she does her thing. And the whole team comes in, protects Batman, and they take down Steppenwolf at the same time. And she leads, she puts in the killer blow, the blow that destroys the Axe, okay? And so I find her philosophy consistent through all the movies I've seen her in, from Wonder Woman to Batman v Superman to Justice League. I find that Diana's philosophy of being a protector and being literally thinking that every single human life under her watch is important. None must die. And if anybody dies, she fails as an Amazon. It's very interesting. And I find that because she took on the mantle of Antiope with the star in the middle of her chest, like the middle of, not her chest, her forehead, like Esther, she's like this deliverer. But she's a deliverer. She's not a savior per se. She's a protector. And so I find that really interesting that her philosophy grates against Bruce's almost on every single occasion where Bruce makes a decision. Diana has to check him because she fundamentally believes in protecting people. She really loves people. She really cares about people. And not only does she care about people, but her thing is she becomes hypersensitive to it. And that's her thing. That's what makes Diana, Diana, you know? So if you guys have any comments in the comment section, I'll be interested in saying, hey, Dave Ethan says, hey, man, Dave, it's good to see you, bro. I've been talking about this video. I hope that you're enjoying it. Let me just come out of this because I'm actually showing you here instead of me, so you can see my face for a little bit. So yeah, man, I just wanted to share this with you guys. It's nuanced, so it's not that easy to pick up. You have to kind of watch at the philosophies of the characters. Again, I love characters that have interesting depth to their philosophies. So you see the clash, the conflict between the characters, you know, the conflict between Bruce Wayne's ideologies and Diana's ideologies, the conflicts between Clark Kent's ideologies and Bruce Wayne's ideologies. I would love to see if there's any conflict between Clark Kent's ideology and Diana's ideology. I think they would work pretty good together, I think. Even though I've noticed that Clark and Diana, we don't really see them together very often, but whenever Clark and Diana are together, it's very interesting because she's sort of in agreement with Clark more than she's in agreement with Bruce, which is very funny because when Bruce talks, now Bruce is like, now she's glad, which is funny, but yet at the same time, it's kind of strange that Bruce doesn't quite get Diana yet. I don't think he quite understands where she's coming from all the time, but it's just interesting to me. It's interesting how Diana always comes from a perspective, a human perspective, and she's not even human. So I just thought that was interesting to share with you guys here. If there's anything else you guys want to talk about, but of course, the Wonder Woman 84 Twitter sharing that Jeff Johns showed, that should hype people for Wonder Woman in 1984. It should be interesting. The take on that and how Patty Jenkins and they proceed with her in terms of the consistency of her philosophy that, you know, protecting life, preserving life is like the priority. Like, I got to live up to this mantle of Antiope. I got to live up to deserving this thing that's on my forehead. And so it's very interesting how she goes about doing that, you know, how her impact on the next major event in the world, because you notice Diana seems to have impacts on major events in the world. So World War I, we had that. Now we're going to have 1984, probably the Berlin Wall, or if not the Berlin Wall, maybe something to do with communism falling in Soviet Russia, or, you know, the Cold War ending. Who knows? Who knows? We'll find out. But it should be interesting. But you know, looking in at the characters, when you look at characters and you analyze them, you know, I was talking to guys in the last video about Han Solo, and I find that this character also is very interesting to me. You know, what makes us alert to Han Solo? Why do we like Han Solo? So I'll go into that in more detail. I also want to look at characters like Black Panther again, because I find that the T'Challa and just the story in itself has a lot of stuff going on in it that I really appreciate and like. And I would like to talk about the psychology of some of these characters as well, even though it's a little bit more straightforward than, say, for instance, Justice League movie, which and then you know, the fact that Wonder Woman was in 3 movies kind of flushes out the character even more. And I always believe it's not just about showing up a character in different films and getting people familiar with that character. I always believe the character has a philosophy. They have a way of living, a way of conducting themselves. They have an ideology. And Han Solo's ideology is spelt out in Han Solo as well. So that's what I like about the last couple Star Wars movies. I think that the characters are pretty well defined, and they have philosophies of things, philosophies on life. And I think that's the interesting thing. Whether their philosophies are correct or not, they have a philosophy on life. And I like that. Don't quite get that with other comic book movies, and I don't like the superficial sprinkling of characters. I just don't like it. So anyway, that's where I'm at. I know people, you know, there's a new generation that grew up on Disney, you know, Disney flicks and Disney Channel and that kind of stuff. So I understand why some people like the MCU and Walt Disney stuff and so on, because Walt Disney did their groundwork, so they grew up with that. But for me, I grew up on, when I was looking at movies, we're looking at things like The Innocent Man and The Godfather. I grew up on that kind of shit. So you gotta understand, I'm more want a meaty sort of story versus a scant sort of superficial Hollywood kind of hero-based story. Now, you would say, well, Han Solo was kind of like that. It was predictable. It was kind of Hollywood kind of thing, but it's in the keeping with the Star Wars theme. But nonetheless, it's got that Han Solo feeling that you had from Star Wars. So I was cool with it. You know, it is Hollywoodish. I do agree with you to a high extent about that. But there's, again, these grounded elements. It's not childish. You know, to me, Han Solo had a certain degree of seriousness to it. And I like Star Wars Rebels, which is, Walt Disney did that too. You know, Clone Wars was great too. But Star Wars Rebels. And I feel like Han Solo sort of fits into that kind of feel. And it makes sense because Han Solo comes just before Star Wars Rebels. So it makes sense to me that it fits in that way. It's very consistent with the Star Wars storyline. You know, one of these days we'll go through all of the Star Wars trilogy, because there's a lot of Star Wars movies and series and all that stuff, and it'll be fantastic to do that. And then we can look into Star Wars lore with the Siths and the Jedi, and before the Siths and the Jedi, and the Republics and the Empires and all that stuff. Should be fun. All right, so anyway, enough of Star Wars. And you know, Zack Snyder's a big Star Wars fan. I didn't even know that. But I'm saying all of this to say that, you know, the philosophies of these characters, the thing about these movies, and why I can't knock Justice League, the theatrical cut, and all I can see is more richness out of Zack Snyder's cut when it comes out, is that when you look at the thing as a holistic piece, and you look at the characters, how they were shaped, which again, Whedon couldn't veer off from what Zack was doing, you would find that there's just beautiful tapestry in there. And it shows us diversity of thought, as well as diversity of all these different people who actually had clashes, ideological clashes, but they still ended up working together. And that should be a lesson to us, Republicans, Democrats, people who are foreigners, people who are Americans, people who are from different parts of the world. The internet helps us to soup together, brings us different communities together. So I'm just saying, you can have an ideological difference, that even though both of you going in the same direction, you have an ideological difference with another person, and yet that you don't let that tear everything apart. You still try to work together as a team. And sometimes it works that, you know, piece of your ideological piece of your ideology and piece of that person's ideology work together really well, and that shoots everything forward. It's not your ideology, it's not the person's ideology, it's just pieces of it. And so that's what happened in Justice League. And I don't know, there was a lot of thought put into this movie, I think. I really appreciate the daylights out of it. I think it's a really great piece of movie. All right, let's just see what you guys have in your chat section here. Jared Taylor says, love your videos, 100%. Thank you, Jared Taylor. If you guys have any other questions, maybe based on Wonder Woman and Justice League or any other things to say, feel free to chat right now in the chat section. Chat up a storm. Let's talk about it. All right. So yeah, I'm putting out this meme also on Twitter. I don't know if I told you guys this, but I will be planning on putting out 2 other groups on Facebook. So we have a number of groups on Facebook already. And one of them is, of course, Justice League Unite, in which this meme went out. And there's a number of other DC groups I'm part of. Excuse me, I had to yawn for a second. That must be funny. Yeah, but also trying to look at putting out some more DC groups, which would be, of course, the Wonder Woman group, the Shazam group, and the Aquaman group. We're gonna be putting out those groups very soon. But in addition to that, I also want to put out a group that just covers everything DC, especially the comics. I have not been really talking about DC comics. I haven't been talking about much comics, many comics, to be honest with you. And I think I want to put out a group on some of the comics and just what's happening in comics in Rebirth, and then probably even go back in time with some of the comics. By the way, the other interesting thing about Wonder Woman is to extend her ideology and see if her ideology fits in with the ideology of Wonder Woman that we've seen in the television series. And you'll be surprised how much Wonder Woman that we saw from Batman v Superman to Wonder Woman to Justice League, how she also fits in with the ideology of Wonder Woman that we've actually seen on the television screen, the popular 1970s Wonder Woman television series. So that also is going to be interesting to show you guys, because Wonder Woman is pretty awesome and started movements and it helped movements and all of that we have right now. Shout out to all the people out there. Shout out to you guys who want to talk a little bit more in the chat section. Jared Taylor, Dave Ethan, shout out to you guys. I'm going to stay for a couple minutes. It's 10 p.m. in the night already. I have to drink some water and go in my bed and sleep and wake up tomorrow and probably do some good work. Hopefully I can really get some work in tomorrow. Today was my rest day. So got to check out my family as well. Just make sure everything's good with fam. Shout out to you guys and your families as well. I know you guys spend a lot of time, with your families, and family is always very important. I got one more thing to tell you guys, and that is that I saw something on Comic-Con that will be coming out. I'm still waiting for Aquaman to really put out something for Comic-Con. I know that there was another Comic-Con, I think it was, or some kind of con that in April, where something with Aquaman and something from Shazam, I think, came out, and that was great. That was great. But I'm looking forward to seeing something from Aquaman. Something. I'm really looking forward to that. Got not much news, but I'm looking forward to seeing anything about that. Okay. Anyway, guys, I got to go in my bed myself. Dave Ethan, I hear you, man. Have a good sleep. Dave Ethan, Jared Taylor. It's nice talking to you guys. Jared Tyler. Shout out to all you people who have been subscribing to my group. Don't forget, you can also donate to my channel via Western Union or MoneyGram. We'll talk about that some other time. But I just wanted to share this with you guys. I hope you guys have a great day. And remember, whatever differences you may have with other people, and you may have a lot of differences with them, if they are people of integrity, by and large, you may be able to agree on them on some issues and move forward. Or sometimes, like what Bruce Wayne did, you argue your case and then you take a vote. Whoever, if you got the most votes, you move forward. So there's always the democratic process that you can also implement. On that note, I hope you guys have a great night. It was nice seeing you and getting a little bit of feedback. I just wanted to share this with you guys. Have a pleasant one.